haven't seen the movie, you'll be like, what the hell is he doing? Hello, huge movie fanatic. Nay, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review kind of a movie that wouldn't be that big a deal except for it was shot. It was actually filmed in the Twin Cities, and I'm from Minnesota, so I guess that it makes this movie a little more near and dear to my heart because of that. I'm coming at you to review the Dario Argento movie from 1992 by the name of Trauma, and it's actually, I think, the first movie of his to star his daughter Asia Argento, although I'm pretty sure, I think it's the first movie she's been in that he directed, but I mean, she was in The Church, Dario Argento production, I think, executive produced or produced by Dario Argento. So she's been in stuff before Trauma, but I think this was the first movie that he directed that she was in. And as I said, filmed in the Twin Cities. This is one of two movies, if I'm correct, or if my information is correct, that he did in the United States, the first of which being the second or the first half, or I don't remember which half of his, which movie of his was the first in Two Evil Eyes. I haven't seen that for a long time. I know that I'd like the Dario Argento segment of that more. So from what I understand, he only made two movies in the United States, Two Evil Eyes, or his segment of Two Evil Eyes, and then Trauma. And, I'm actually kind of, not that I had anything to do with it, but, being a Minnesotan and stuff, I'm kind of proud of the fact that this is, that a Dario Argento movie shot in the Twin Cities was really kind of cool. And I will say that, for me, the late 80s, early 90s is for me pretty much the end of the classic Dario Argento era. I would almost go so far as to say that Trauma might very well be, I haven't seen Stendhal Syndrome in a long time, but Trauma might be more or less for me the end of an era, or the actual end of the classic Dario Argento. I haven't seen everything he's done since, frickin' Stendhal Syndrome and Phantom of the Opera and that, but I mean, that's because everything that I have seen after Phantom of the Opera is just like, oh my gosh, So, I guess I really can't say that not having seen everything, but pretty much everything past Stendhal Syndrome from what I've seen is just like really not that much. So the premise of this movie is kind of cool, once again starring Asia Argento, and the premise of this movie is, one thing I do want to say before I start the review is it's got a really kind of cool opening credit sequence where it's like just the credits coming and going and stuff like that, and it features like this, I don't know, it sounds like this, some kind of French, I don't know what, gathering, and someone talking in a speakerphone like from the 40s or something like that, 30s or 40s, and it's like some political, I don't know, it just seems like some French political something or other from the 40s not being able to speak French. I can't understand what's being said, and it's just like, oh, that's kind of a cool, there's no music in the opening credits, it's just like all this French talking. It's probably talking about killing people via guillotine or something, because when the credits are open, there's this like little kind of paper cutouts of this little, I don't know, this public execution or something like that. And it's just like, with smoke and the camera, very Dario Argento-ish, just kind of going around these little paper puppets, and there's this paper like guillotine, and this actual, this executioner like, drops his paper arm, and this paper guillotine thing goes down and cuts off a paper person's head, and then some of the spectators' arms raise, and there's cheers, and it's really a cool little end of the opening credits little bit that goes by too fast in my opinion. It's just like, holy crap, a little paper cutout public execution via guillotine. It's really kind of cool. And when the viewer if the viewer doesn't know anything about this movie going into it, they're kind of wondering like, why are we seeing that? It's evident. You find out very quickly where we cut to the Hennepin. It's a street, incidentally, like in Minneapolis. Hennepin Chiropractic, which was probably a real place, I would imagine. And we cut to it's all rainy, and there's this one woman who's got a late night, patient or whatever, and in very Dario Argento fashion, this person is, very mysterious in black, freaking trench coat and gloves or whatever, and we see kind of just the scene unfold from this potential, basically killer's point of view, where she has this late night chiropractic appointment or whatever, and this person shows up, and it's very kind of eerie, and the rain's coming down, and you know, just like with kind of his one of the more recent movies, opera. It's kind of cool, you know, being a fan of opera myself. There's like a opera playing on the little boombox, CD boombox, and I will say, having rewatched this recently a couple times this year, like I don't know, it seems like the scene might you know, whatever you call it, it might not linger as long as it kind of should have before it escalates into the murder of this woman or whatever. But basically, there's this. I don't know. I think Dario Argento had Tom Savini. Incidentally, Tom Savini does the gore effects in this movie, which is really kind of fun. There's a lot of names associated with this movie that I really love. You've got Piper Laurie in this movie, you know, which is Carrie's mom, of course, and I don't really care really one way or another about Frederick Forrest, but he's in this movie, and there's a really big part from Brad Dourif. So, and then Pino Donaggio, or however the hell you say his name, does the music for this movie. There's a lot of names that I absolutely love in this movie, but I think it's said in like some of the, I didn't even show you right here. I've got one of the original VHSs from World Vision, the unrated version here. I didn't even show you, I meant to show you that before. And then the Anchor Bay DVD, which I think is long out of print. But what I was saying is, I think Dario Argento had Tom Savini like make this, you know, basically portable decapitation device. It was just like a drill. I think he turned a drill into like a thing that, you know, has a wire on it, and it's hooked to the bottom on one side, and then he's got this device where the drill, it's all you know, confined in like a metal box or something like that. But basically you turn the switch and it'll wind the wire, so, you know, you can put the wire around someone's head and turn it on, and it'll be like the wire will pull through the neck. So what happens is, you know, the killer basically clonks this victim on the back of the head or whatever, sends her falling to the floor, and basically puts this thing around her neck and cuts her head off. In the unrated version, you can't see it in the R-rated version, but in the unrated version, he like picks the head up off the ground, and I don't know if I don't know if we show him, you know, show the killer put it in a bag or not, but and then kind of reaches in for, I think this chiropractor had like some geckos or something like that in a cage, reaches in for the geckos. It's just like, whatever. Incidentally, I didn't even mention the first time I saw this movie was, I think, in 1995. I think it was like 94, 95 was when I kind of discovered Dario Argento, and that was back before internet, or before I had internet, and I mean, it was really frustrating to even you know, actually research out Dario Argento's filmography, and, you know, not only that, but if you were somehow able to find out his filmography, to try to find his movies. At the time, you know, I was able to get or see Suspiria, and I think it was really hard for me to track down a VHS version of Deep Red. It was really frustrating in the 90s, being a new fan of Dario Argento, to try to find his movies, in particular in America. It was just like, oh my gosh. But I remember being like, I imagine obviously I would have found this at a video store. I remember being like, oh my God, trauma. And then of course I didn't know that it was filmed in the Twin Cities. And then the more you watch it, it's just like, holy crap, that's the, you know, the bridge, you know, on there or whatever. And this is the Hennepin Chiropractic, and oh my gosh, you know, this is, you know, filmed in the Twin Cities. So what I was saying is, the next scene that happens is basically introducing Asia. I'm not going to do it beat by beat. I just had to kind of show you the beginning, and then I'll just get on with it. But the beginning of the next scene is just this guy who's, I don't know who this guy is. Who's this guy? Oh God, his name isn't even on the frickin' top of the. Christopher Rydell is actually the main star, who of course I don't know. You know, I think he's some son of some filmmaker or something like that. I don't think I've ever really seen him in anything else. He's the main star. He's even before. Yeah, he's even before Asia. So it's Christopher Rydell, Asia Argento, Laura Johnson, James Russo, Brad Dourif, Frederick Forrest, and Piper Laurie. This is the scene on this bridge that I actually shot some. I actually took a trip out to this location, this same bridge from this movie, in September I took a trip to this location. I actually was able to find three separate locations from this movie this past summer, and I'll interject these videos into the the footage or the review as I'm talking about it. But this particular bridge is really photogenic and stuff like that, and this bridge is Asia Argento character is gonna basically, Christopher Rydell's driving along the bridge and sees this girl, and it's like, oh my god, she's climbing over the railing. It's like, oh my god, she's gonna kill herself, what's going on? And the guy stops, and she's just sitting there kind of like, I don't know, pondering suicide or whatever. And Chris, the Rydell, what the hell I don't even remember the name of the character. Does it say? Oh, it says he's in I guess Christopher Rydell was in For the Boys and Mask, apparently. But David, yeah, that's right. She's Aura. Asia is Aura Petrescu, and what's his name? Christopher is David. David's like, what are you doing? She's like, leave me alone. And she looks all drugged up and just like on some drugs or something like that. He's like, you don't want to do this anyway. He basically, on this bridge, this famous bridge, which I can be seen here at this famous bridge in September, in this video that I shot at this same bridge, that the scene took place in Trauma. It's kind of fun. It was kind of cool to be there. I mean, being in the Midwest and Minnesota and stuff, you're not, I don't know, it's not in a place that's really full of that many movie locations. I don't know, not a whole hell of a lot, especially Dario Argento movies. So here's me hamming it up at this actual location that was filmed in the beginning of the movie Trauma. It's kind of fun. So basically the David character, rescues the Aura. That scene, that name's so hard to say, I'll just say Asia. Argento character, and basically what we come to find out is she's like an anorexic, and from what I hear in the interview on the DVD with Dario Argento is like, Asia was actually kind of, I don't know if it was because she was doing this movie or if she was anyway, but she was kind of like maybe trying to be a little too, those people who are, what the hell are they? They're method actors, maybe a little too method with the part, because she was actually not eating very much during the filming of this movie. Like I say, I don't know if she was, would have been anorexic at this time of her life anyway, or if it was because of them. I don't imagine the movie helped it at all, but you can kind of tell in the movie that, holy cow, she's kind of a stick. But basically, she's like an anorexic character, and I don't quite understand. She's basically what's her name, Piper Laurie's daughter in this movie, and I don't understand what the big issue with her is. I know that she's going to some Faraday clinic, I don't know if it's for her eating disorder or what, but I don't understand what the needle marks on her arm are about. There's a lot of things I don't really understand about this movie. I know that she's just some troubled teen and anorexic problems or whatever, but I don't quite understand what the basic problem with her is, or what it really has to do. I mean, I think it's a side plot point. It doesn't have really a whole hell of a lot to do with the movie. But so basically, this David character takes, I'll just say his character's name, and then I'll say Asia, her real name, because it's easier to say than or I can't even say her character name in this movie. Basically takes her to lunch because obviously she looks all thin and gaunt, and she basically, she's not hungry, and it's just not a really good sign because she's so skinny. He's kind of asking her questions. He's trying to help her out. She looks like she's some runaway anorexic, runaway druggie or whatever. He's trying to help her out, and she basically just takes his, steals his jacket with his wallet inside and runs away, and basically gets picked up by child services or something like that, is brought back to her house where her mom, Piper Laurie, and her dad live. And incidentally, this is another one of the 3 locations that I actually visited this September. So I've actually got footage that I shot here of the actual house that was used in the Twin Cities, actually found in St. Paul. This house is actually in this really cool area that, not being a city person, I actually felt kind of at ease in this little area this house is located in. This is my footage that I shot in September of the house used in the movie Trauma, the Petrescu House, if you will, where the family of Piper Laurie and the daughter of Asia Argento and dad are living in. And there's this scene that takes place in this house, the seance scene, which is really kind of a cool scene where Piper Laurie is this woman who's, I guess, runs the seances or whatever, and she's trying to contact, I think she's trying to, I don't really remember if she's trying to contact Nicholas. At this time we don't know who Nicholas is, but she ends up finding, instead, coming across the spirit of this black lady. And I just say black lady because, the voice is, we can tell that the voice is probably the same woman who got decapitated at the beginning of the movie. So she's doing a seance for, I don't know if people just show up who want to talk to their relatives or whatever, and this, this black woman, this recently decapitated soul of this black woman ends up coming into her voice, and Piper Laurie does this is such a Piper Laurie role, this character, where she's doing the seance and she's, talking for this black woman, and it's kind of part Piper Laurie's voice and part black woman voice, and it's just like, my head took my head, and it's just like, it's creeping some of the other, the other people who are at the seance out, and she's like, the killer, I know who the killer is. The killer is present. And it's just like, it's raining, and it's all rainy and stormy during this scene as well. And there's this scene where it's just like, I think a branch or something comes through the window at that point, and it's just like, I'm hysterical, and I don't know if the power goes out. I don't know what happens that causes such a ruckus during the scene, but all of a sudden, like, Piper Laurie's like running out into the rain, and I think Asia chases after her, and Asia comes across her head, just freaking, or not her head, but her body, the body of presumably her mom or whatever, just laying there, and then like she looks up and sees some killer which is holding two heads, and it looks like, oh, it's mom's head and it's dad's head, and oh no, the killer kind of backs away and goes into the rainy darkness or whatever, and the Frederick Forrest, who plays Dr. Judd's shaking Ozzy, is like, what did you see? What happened? So basically, during this seance scene at this house that I visited recently in September, this seance scene, basically the soul of this woman who was killed at the beginning of the movie, found this Piper Laurie character, and I don't know, like I say, I don't know what caused her to run out in the rain, kind of just nonsense, no really excuse for it or whatever, but obviously at that point the movie turns into a kind of a whodunit, like obviously the Asia character wants to know, who the hell killed her folks at this point. And again, just like with the beginning scene, it was in the rain, the seance was in the rain, and the decapitations were in the rain, and obviously we figure that the killer was one of the people at the seance or something like that, because, well, that's what the spirit or whatever said. So that's how that goes. So, after the murders happen, the police have Asia, in the car, in the back of their car. They're going to take her, at this point, Dr. Judd's going to take her to the Faraday Clinic or whatever. And at this point, I don't know if it's presented like maybe he's a pervert or something. I don't know. It's really kind of underplayed or whatever. But, there's some talking with the cop and Dr. Judd, and they look back in the car, and Asia's gone. So basically, we learn that the David character is an artist at this news station in the city or whatever, and Asia ends up, because she had his wallet. It was actually a competent plot point. She stole his wallet for some food or whatever, so she could eat it and probably puke it up or whatever. She was actually able to find out where he worked because she had his ID and stuff like that, and now with her parents dead and she's on the run once again, she's got nowhere to go, nowhere to stay, no way to afford food or whatever. So she comes back to David, which is kind of an interesting plot point for help or whatever. And now she's on a mission to kind of pretty much find out or killed her parents or whatever. And that's what basically this movie is. It's just it's a mystery, kind of a like whodunit, or them trying to figure out what the hell happened at the seance and why. So now that Aura, I think that's her name, I can pronounce that, now that Aura and David are happily back together again, and David's got his jacket and his wallet, presumably, maybe he doesn't have all his money back, but they're back together, and I think Aura wants to go back to the house, which is now cordoned off with like police tape and stuff at night, and this is a kind of a cool scene, back to the famous house, and where the seance took place, which is all cordoned off with police tape and stuff, and I don't know, I guess they're going there just to find clues or whatever. It's really kind of cool because, via point of view kind of a shot, Dario Argento point of view shots and stuff, we see that the killer, in fact, is also, you know, entering the house as well and looking for them. And I don't know, it's like she goes downstairs, I think David goes upstairs, or maybe vice versa or something. They split up and looking for clues in this dark house. David gets the electricity back on, and it's really kind of creepy because once he, you know, gets the electricity back on in the fuse box or whatever, this tape, I didn't mention it, but they were recording on reel to reel, they were recording the seance. So when the power comes back on, this tape is playing of the seance, which is kind of sad at that point because it's of, you know, her voice of her, you know, dead mom. It's just like, the killer is present, you know, it's like the seance in Piper Laurie voice. And, you know, Aura comes down to the room where the seance happened and listens to the rest of that tape, and she's like, that's the first time I've heard it. Incidentally, like the Petrescus in this movie are like, they're basically, Romanian, I think. Romanian, so the Italian Asia Argento is like doing her best to do like a Romanian accent or something. And it's just like, I don't understand why they got to do that. Like, you know, you've got this Italian girl who probably, you know, more or less speaks Italian, who does know English, but now she's got to do English in a Romanian accent. It's like, why can't they just be, you know, if the main character, which is Asia Argento, why can't, if she's Italian, why can't they make the, you know, the family just be Italian, so she can just do her normal Italian accent with the English talking or whatever, but whatever. So I don't think they really find out a whole hell of a lot of information at the house. You know, the killer is, you know, through killer POV, we see that the killer is trying to, you know, locate someone, but I don't know, the killer can't locate anyone, ends up, I think when the power comes on and the lights come on, it kind of scares the killer away because the killer was probably more comfortable creeping around in the dark. So the killer ends up running out the house, I think, or running out of the house, the non-ghetto way to say it, running out of the house, ends up smashing David's, you know, window on his Bronco or whatever, which is kind of a bummer. And then basically just in the, you know, in the dark of night, David and Aura, I can say that, what the hell was I talking about? David and Aura, you know, drive away and into the night and whatever. Okay, so maybe I will do a beat by beat. Next we see this nerd kid with glasses. Basically, I think it's at nighttime, he's looking up. In the next door he sees, you know, basically the killer has got the woman's head that was decapitated at the beginning of the movie or whatever, and the killer's got the woman's head in a pot or something like that, and like cutting out the dreadlocks or something like that, all the while the gecko's over there going just having its mouth open and shutting it and making all kinds of gecko sounds or whatever. And this kid's like, Mom, there's a woman up there in that window who keeps looking at me, a black lady. This lady is looking at me, you know, and she's like, oh, there's no one up there, and she, you know, kisses him to bed and shuts the door, and he's like, but there is. She keeps staring at me, black lady. And we kind of introduce this nerd kid who will come into play later on in the movie, but there. So basically we see this kid next day. He's like this butterfly nerd kid who's got glasses on and he wears cardigans, and he's a butterfly enthusiast, and he's looking up in his yard into the sky and seeing butterflies and identifying them. And basically one of these lovely butterflies goes and ends up flying over and landing on the house next door, and of course the gecko goes and like eats and crushes the butterfly in its mouth and goes back into the house with the butterfly in its mouth. And I guess this pisses the kid off or something. This makes the kid go into the house, and of course at this point we know it's the killer's house or the killer's staying there, and there's this kind of suspenseful scene where the kid goes into the... Oh, by the way, the music in this scene by good old Pino Donaggio, or however the hell you say his name, is really great. It's just like dun 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 dun. I'm sure if you haven't seen the movie, my playing back of it with my mouth is making it so great. But anyway, there's several scenes in this movie where, you know, the music is well, it's Pino Donaggio, so I mean it's obviously really, really great music, but the music in this scene is great. Okay, I'm doing a really bad version. Dun, 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 dun. If you've seen it, you know what the hell I'm doing. So this really suspenseful scene, not really, where the kid goes into the killer's house looking for the gecko. I don't know if he just wants to grab the gecko and squish it. That's what he ends up doing. I don't know what, if he just wants revenge on the gecko for killing his butterfly or what. But he ends up going into the house and he ends up finding this, this wire decapitation device. And this is kind of quote unquote suspense scene where he puts it around his neck and he's like, his thumb is like fiddling, kind of by the switch. And it's like, oh my God, the viewer's like, is he going to turn it on? Of course he doesn't. But I think the killer ends up coming home and scares the kid. And he snuck into the window and he probably goes out the window the same way. But there's the little nerd kid, going into the killer's house bit. And it's really cool. Dario Argento has always done, even since like whatever the late 60s and the 70s and stuff. But I don't know, did he do a movie in the late 60s or was it early 70s? I don't know. But it really great with the kind of the black trench coat wearing gloved killer and showing a presence without showing a presence, and it's done so well in this movie too, with just the the point of views and the black gloves and all this kind of stuff. So by using point of views and just the black gloves and stuff, you get a sense of the killer without any kind of identifying the killer in any way, which is really kind of a Dario Argento staple, which is existed since either the late 60s or early 70s or whatever. So there's this bit of drama where Asia, the character, oh wait, I can say Aura now. So Aura is staying with David now, and this scene's kind of sad because it's like, okay, you've got this teenage girl whose parents just died, she's anorexic, she's got all these problems, and you're just gonna screw your anchor co-worker, while this troubled teen girl who just lost both of her parents is staying with you. But David's screwing his I think Grace is the name of the anchor woman who, his co-worker that works at the news station, and screwing her, and Aura sees them and kind of runs away, and then David goes out and drives out and kind of finds her again, and they embrace, and it's just, I don't know, I guess it was a scene to just maybe put a little more, give the viewer a little, give the viewer a little bit more of a hint of how much David cares for her, even though he's screwing some other woman in the next room. So the next day he's at work and he's doing his artistry and stuff at the news channel, and he's watching the news channel in his little office thing, and he's realizing, they're doing this news station is, doing over the course of the days and weeks and stuff, reports of they're calling this killer the headhunter. And I don't know if the news puts it together, but they're showing shots of it raining and stuff. I think I don't think the news is putting it together, but David watching the news reports is putting it together that holy cow, it's always raining when the headhunter strikes, and it's just like, oh my gosh, there's a little bit of a a revelation for the David and the audience. And it's so funny how I don't think the news people figured it out, but the artist, David artist working at the news station did. So basically, when David gets home, I don't understand how this happened. If there was a work day or whatever. Next time David ends up at home, he's like, "Aura, where are you?" And he goes into the living room to find Grace there, and she's like, "That's the co-anchor co-woman. Why do I say co-woman? Co-worker woman who he screws." She's like, "I called the Faraday Clinic. I had them take Aura away. She doesn't, that's where she belongs, not here." And he's like, "Damn you, Grace!" And we basically see Aura now back in the hands of Dr. Judd at the Faraday Clinic, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't exactly, they're playing up Dr. Judd as probably being a suspect or possibly the killer, and I don't think they really explain. I mean, I think the character has some fascination with her. We don't know if it's sexual or what, but later on he does say, "Oh, I loved her." And we don't know if it's sexual or just, admiration for a teenager or whatever. I mean, I guess any way you cut it, it's kind of potentially nasty. But now that Aura's under the care of Judd, he proceeds to do probably what he's done with her in the past, where he gives her these berries, these red berries, and crush them with your teeth, crush them. Put them in her mouth and crush the red berries and suck on the fluid, drink the juice, or whatever the hell he says. And he ends up forcing them in her mouth. Crush it, crush it. and she ends up getting all psychedelic, like, and all these kind of goofy Dario Argento psychedelic visions stuff kind of happening. And during these visions, he actually, sees like flashbacks of the murder and trying to see the murderer more clearly, the murderer holding, the heads of mom and dad. And she also sees this vision of like mom on the floor and Dr. Judd on top of mom. And it's at this point we're just like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? The next scene's kind of cool, so much for not doing a beat by beat. Well, this movie was filmed in the Twin Cities and I'm from Minnesota. Give a guy a break. So the next scene's kind of cool. It's basically raining at night, of course, and the killer is coming. And the music in this scene is really great. Like when it's the point of view of the killer approaching the Faraday clinic, it's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, you can't do it, the score with your mouth really, but the music in this scene is really, really cool, where the killer's basically, they've got Aura strapped down to the bed and, this nurse is sedating her or whatever, and the killer's entering the Faraday clinic and going through the hallways and stuff. And I think I think the killer actually, like, this guy opens the door and he's like, yeah, like a security guard, and he's like, it's like implied that the killer stabs him. So the killer, like, kills his way into the Faraday clinic, and basically, it's funny because you think the killer's going for Aura or something like that, and what turns out to be happening is, in fact, the killer goes and ends up killing this nurse, which was tending to Aura. And this really funny scene. At this point in the movie, we're really not seeing stuff. We're not really seeing graphic decapitations or anything like that. This really funny scene where the nurse is clonked on the back of the head. And that's kind of the MO for the headhunter, is, clonking someone on the back of the head with a hammer, and then while they're like paralyzed maybe, or just laying there, droozy or whatever, put the wire around their neck. They want to, the killer wants to decapitate these people alive. So with their little decapitation wire drill thing, it's really funny because there's a presumably mental patient or whatever, with the nurses dragged into this mental patient's room, and he's just sitting in a chair like, ugh. And the thing comes out, and it's really this high pitch. The wire goes around the neck, and when it's running, it's really this high pitched, like a dentist drill or something. And it's as it's tightening around the neck, it's kind of puts pressure on, or whatever on the motor, and it's like, and we just see this presumably crazy inmate at the Faraday clinic just sitting there going, which is really cool. We're not showing graphic, head decapitation. We're just showing this nutty guy's reaction. And then when the head's like, I think we see the head being ripped off and put in a bag, maybe in the shadow or something, up on the wall. And the guy's like, the guy is just really great. The psycho guy in this scene, where it's just kind of witnessing the decapitation, is really fun. So it turns out that, I guess the killer wasn't even after Aura, and maybe the killer didn't even know Aura was in the Faraday clinic. It was more like the killer went there to kill the nurse. And it's just like, okay, well, at this point we're like, what the hell's going on? So David ends up going in there and gallantly ends up breaking Aura out of the Faraday clinic, and they end up doing some more Dick Tracy detective work, and they go downtown to the warehouse district, and they dig through. I think they find out the nurse. They see information on the news or something like that, and they end up finding the name of the nurse, and they end up finding the storage facility that she had. Anyway, they end up going through her stuff, and they find this picture, and Aura's like, look, at all the people on this picture are dead, or 3 people on this picture are dead. And it's a picture of, like, nurses and a doctor, at a hospital or something. And so the first, like, 3 people, I don't know if it's the black woman, and I don't know if someone else, I don't know. Anyway, some of the people on this picture are dead. The black woman from the beginning, and this nurse that was looking after her, and maybe this other woman who we don't. Maybe someone was killed off camera in this movie, I don't remember. It seems like in the photo 3 of them are dead, and then 2 of them are left, another woman, and then this doctor, this male doctor, who is, the Brad Dourif character. And basically at this point they end up finding the, phone number in the phone book of this last nurse. and they try to contact her, and they end up showing up at her house. And it's kind of funny because I don't know if this woman's a lesbian. She's like living with some Asian woman who's like 15 years younger than her. And it's really funny because, I mean, one can only assume like these characters are lesbians. And it's just weird how they don't mention it, they don't anything, and they just like, these two women are together, and it's just played like, it's kind of cool in a way, because if they are, I'm assuming the characters are lesbians, but it's not like they, you know, have any rainbows all over their house or anything. There's a weird statue in the front yard, and I don't know what that's about, but it's just really kind of admirable, like how they, you know, assume, you know, if these are lesbian characters, like they don't say anything about it, like, yeah, well, we're lesbians, and they don't mention it. So I kind of, I commend the production for just like showing these two women together and not even mentioning if they're lesbians or not. So it's kind of fun as a viewer to speculate, you know. This Asian woman, like I say, is probably like 15 years younger or something, so I don't know, it's kind of interesting. But it's funny how, you know, David and what's her name, Aura, show up, and it kind of freaks these lesbians out, and they go out, you know, she goes speeding away in her car, and she ends up at a motel, and she's like calling the lesbian Asian woman at her house, and it's like, I'm on the run, come and meet me at the hotel room. And this movie is so funny. So the Asian woman writes like the room number down on a piece of paper. I don't remember how, I don't know if David and Aura, I don't know if they break into the house and find the you know, the notepad and are able to read, you know, the imprint of, you know, the page, you know, she ripped off the page and maybe the imprints on the page underneath it or something. I don't remember how they find out where, you know, the woman escaped to and rented the room at or whatever, but somehow, yeah, I think they go, maybe they, I think they go to the same hotel and check in at the same time. I don't remember if they, I mean, I can only assume they know that this woman is at the hotel too, otherwise why would they be there? It's too much of a coincidence. I don't know, I don't remember. But meanwhile, this woman, not knowing that the Asian woman actually got killed by the killer. It's kind of an off-camera thing where the killer was under the bed, and it's just like, and you know, this is, yeah, the only killer, or the only character that dies that isn't really a part of the agenda, which I'll reveal, or not the agenda, but the revenge, which I'll reveal at the end, towards the end of the review. So anyway, the killer ends up coming to the, you know, having read the notepad themselves, the killer ends up coming to the hotel, and it's not raining, so it's like, oh my gosh, the killer's like, how do I kill this woman? She ends up finding this woman in her hotel room, of course, and was another one of these people in the picture, of these nurses and the doctor. At this point, the viewer's like, you know, as a viewer, you're like, well, what did they do? What's in their past or whatever? Anyway, this woman ends up being attacked, and I think she gets hit in the back of the head with a hammer. I don't remember, but of course it's the same old thing where she gets knocked out, and then at this point the killer proceeds to like light newspaper on fire and hold it under the, you know, the fire water safety fire extinguisher water thing, and it goes, you know, breaks it, and it starts, you know, basically doing the fire extinguisher rain thing out of the thing on the ceiling or the wall, high up, close to the ceiling, and it's like, it's not raining, but I gotta, you know, make it appear like it's raining, which is kind of cool. It would have been kind of fake if every time, you know, the killer goes to kill, it's raining. So it's kind of cool that like one of the last times, you know, one of the killings that actually wasn't raining, you know, I would have had like maybe the last two make it rain or something like that, when in fact I think this is the only one where the killer actually makes it rain that way. But, and of course cuts the head off. And what's so funny is, you know, the David character goes into the room, and you know, the woman, the killer didn't have time to actually take the head, either that or maybe she didn't want the head, but they do this makeup effect, this thing where you know, they got the corpse there, and then the actual actress's woman's, you know, head is through the floor thing. And she's actually, David arrives just before the head kind of dies, and he's actually able to ask the head a couple of questions. I don't think she really is able to speak, you know, and she's like, or something like that. And what's so funny is that the head, you know, as an actor, when you die, you're so used to you're just kind of like, But what's so funny is, I think she does that even when she's just a head, and that wouldn't really happen when you're just a head on the floor. I think she does it though. It's like, ugh. Your head wouldn't do that if it was just on the floor, You go like this, your head wouldn't have the head movement. But it's just a natural instinct. So after that, they tracked down the last person, I think, in the photo that's alive, the doctor, the Brad Dourif character. They track him down, and this guy is, basically a drug junkie guy, and the Brad Dourif, unfortunately, stuff in the movie doesn't last very long, but when it's there, it's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's almost like a waste of Brad Dourif, to be honest. I mean, a couple years prior, he just done that great performance in Exorcist 3, and it's just like, I don't know, watching this movie, revisiting it this year a couple times, I mean, it's just completely wasted Brad Dourif. Like, if you've actually got him, why are you using him so minusculely in this movie? But there's a scene where, this is the third and final location I was able to find this year when I went to visit the Twin Cities and film these locations. It's in the movie, it's the Five Corners Bar, and it is no longer the Five Corners Bar. I don't remember exactly what it is called now, but it's across the street in the movie and still now from Palmer's Bar, and that kind of the artwork that is featured on the side of Palmer's Bar is the exact same now as it was in the movie, with this guy kind of leaning over against the wall or whatever the hell he's doing. So I was able to actually find, the former Five Corners Bar by searching Palmer's Bar, and I was happy to find out that was still there, and obviously that way you were able to find the former location of Five Corners Bar, which is where, at the beginning of this one scene where David meets this character, this doctor, former doctor played by Brad Dourif, he's basically walking out of the bar and he's like, are you Dr. So-and-so? Maybe what? You got any money, man? No, I don't got no money, but do you know who these people were? And he's trying to figure out, this guy, Brad Dourif's just this, he's just a junkie now, the character, former doctor, and there's this great bit where he's like, do you know who this is? And he's like, I don't! Now leave me the fuck alone! And it's just totally Chucky voice, It would have been so cool to have been down there and like you're just walking around the city and all of a sudden you hear Chucky yelling at the top of his lungs, leave me the fuck alone! Incidentally, when I went there to this location in September, I was like, oh my god, it looks so seedy in the movie, in the scene, and it's just like, well, that's because there wasn't any set dressing. Like, oh my gosh, like this was, the location of the former, Five Corners Bar, or the, now still existing Palmer's Bar across the street, is the exact opposite of the kind of location I like to be in. So I was just like, I went there and I filmed me in front of the former, Five Corners Bar, and then across the street I filmed the Palmer's Bar, and then I was out of there as quickly as I could because, yeah, they didn't do any set dressing for the seediness of the scene in the movie. I found out it was just kind of that way, that way automatically. So, but this, but what I was saying is it was just a bummer how after that scene, and basically he just gives Brad Dourif character his card and walks away, and then this is one of the parts of the movie that's just kind of goofy, that all of a sudden we cut to later on that night, Brad Dourif in the city in the rain, just like wandering, just like, I don't know, just aimlessly wandering, and he just shows up in this warehouse thing, or I don't know if he's living there. He shows up to his door, and there's kind of in a throwback to like reminded you of Deep Red with the doll or the dummy, the kind of thing, and it's just like, or even Creepers, Phenomena. There's this doll sitting against the wall, and it kind of falls over, and at that point he's hit in the back of the head with a hammer, and it kind of, I guess what it does when he's hit in probably the base of the neck, or the spine, maybe he breaks the spine when he hits these people in the back of the neck with a hammer, but he's kind of incapacitates Brad Dourif, and he's like, ugh, and he puts the thing around his neck, the wire decapitator machine, and it's like, but it gets caught in his necklace, and the necklace actually kind of shorts out the motor, and the killer takes the thing off and drags him over. This is kind of cool. Drags him over to this elevator, and puts him facing down in the elevator shaft and presses the elevator, and we got, and And it's really kind of a cool, the decapitation of Brad Dourif by elevator is part cool and part stupid. Like, the first part of the decapitation's cool, where the head kind of pops off and it's like, oh, and he's like screaming as he's like going down. The only problem with the scene I have is they do like blue screen where they show his head going, and the elevator shaft behind him going up really quickly or whatever, and they cut back and forth between like his point of view and his head, and it's a bad. You should have either just done one or the other. Like, this looks really bad, because all of a sudden it's like, it looks like the head's just disappearing, and then in one shot you're going down the elevator, one shot you're going up, and it's just, I don't know. I think the R-rated version doesn't have that part of like the screaming head going down the shaft or whatever, which is actually probably a better, way to do it versus, I mean, it is cool to have him like the guy, the head on the way down, like, witnessing his descent. But it could have been done, that last half of that killing could have been done a little better. So as we're getting kind of close to the end of the movie, basically, David and Aura are just sleeping in bed at night, and this scene's kind of cool, where the way it's revealed. But basically, David just opens his eyes, he looks on the wall, and he sees the shadow of like hunched over, like speaking, and he hears these whispers, and he's like, pss, 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 and he turns around to see Judd, kneeling down by Aura, whispering to her, like, come on, wake up, let's go. And it was just a really cool way to introduce the scene, that's seeing it through like David's point of view of the shadow on the wall and hearing the whispers, and then it's just like, holy shit, someone's in the room, Dr. Judd's trying to kidnap Aura. Basically, once David, wakes up and confronts him, Dr. Judd gets in his car and speeds off, and he ends up just, I don't think there's any kind of a chase, but it's probably the one event in the movie that's like the biggest like action scene or whatever. It's really short-lived, where he ends up crashing. Dr. Judd, speeding away, ends up crashing his car, and ends up, getting mortally injured and dies. And at this point of the movie, obviously the characters and the viewers are thinking, well, Dr. Judd's the killer in particular, especially because the cops open up the trunk and find like 3 of the severed heads or whatever in the trunk, and he's like, well, that's it. That's the killer. The killer, things wrapped up, killer's caught, or whatever. But, fans of Dario Argento movies know better. And this part of the movie is kind of lame, but I don't know, where David goes back into his house, and it's a lake house thing, and he looks and sees this note on the bed, and he's like, Aura like left a suicide note, and there's this kind of a scene where he jumps into the lake, and I don't know if she left clothes if there's clothes on the shore, or why he thinks she's drowned herself, but he goes into the water, and he's like looking for Aura, and there's this really cool music. There's like the song that they came up with for this movie that's like, dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. I think there's lyrics to it or something like that in the end credits or something. I don't know, but there's a cool theme that's like an Aura's theme, and at this point you think Aura's drowned herself, and David kind of becomes a junkie at this point, and he's all of a sudden he became like the character that Brad Dourif played. He's a junkie trying to get prescription drugs. Now he's a drunk. He's in 24 hours, either 12 hours, he's a junkie now all of a sudden. And so there's a scene where junkie David goes and tries to use this. I don't know if this is a prescription that's no good, or I don't know what. He tries to go into a pharmacy and get some drugs so he can drug away his pain of losing his 16-year-old. They didn't have sex. There was some scene that early on that mentioned where, one thing, David's co-worker filled them all in about anorexic teen girls and stuff, and that they don't have sex and stuff. So there's this kind of a gross scene where like she's like, sorry about last night, I wanted to. So the characters don't have sex, and it's kind of just just as well, because I mean she's 16 in the movie, so it's kind of like that'd be kind of gross if they had, and that's probably the reason they put that in the movie. Anyway, what the hell was I saying? Shit. Oh yeah, druggy David is going to get drugs to drug away the pain of his long lost teen whatever girl that he knew for a week or so, and then she killed herself in his lake. Or so he thinks. Anyway, he goes to this pharmacy, gets chased out by the pharmacy guys, and gets chased out of the pharmacy, and he's just, thrown on the floor, or thrown on the ground outside the pharmacy, and everyone's like, hey, look at you, look at the druggie, get a job, buddy, blah, blah, blah. And he sees all these people just going past him, and you see this one shot, because right when he saved Aura at the beginning of the movie on that famous bridge that I shot a video on this summer, he sees this, this bracelet that she's wearing, and he's like, that's quite a nice bracelet you got there. And basically he sees some figure in a black, clothes pass by frame wearing that bracelet. It's Aura's bracelet. And it's like, oh my gosh, it kind of gets him out of his drug-induced stupor, and he actually ends up following that character, that black-clothed character, back to their house. And we see when he arrives at the house, we see a very familiar individual, the nerd kid with a cardigan. I don't know if he's wearing a cardigan in the scene, and the glasses kid with his little butterfly net. This kid would have been very well at home in the butterfly hunt in Summer Camp Nightmare movie. So it's like, oh my gosh, everything comes together. So David follows this character home, this person wearing Aura's bracelet, to this house we know is the viewer knows it's the killer's house, because, well, it's the killer. We've seen it before, and we also have seen that nerd kid, and we know he lives across, and right next door. So this is kind of intriguing, and David sees this big tub of water, and he goes to take a drink from it, I think, which isn't very sanitary, either that or he's putting it on his face, and he sees in the reflection of the water a character, that looks like Aura, And before this scene happened, he sees all kinds of girls in the city and stuff that he thinks Aura, and reflections and windows and stuff, and he looks around and turns around and it's not Aura. So he's haunted by, the aura of Aura, if you will, and the memory of Aura, and he's seeing Aura everywhere, and he sees her, in this thing he's using, in this thing he's splashing water on his face or drinking or whatever the hell he's doing, and he looks up in the window and it's like, it's gone. I mean, it had to have been her, And I don't remember how he gets into the house. He knocks on the door, and we don't see who answers the door, but he's like, oh, I thought someone I knew was here, or something like that. And then the door is slammed on him, and with that very in Dario Argento fashion, without seeing who the person who opened and shut the door is. The scene, that part happens without identifying the person who opened and closed the door, without identifying the killer, without identifying who lives there. And then I think he probably just goes around the side of the house and sneaks in that same way the nerd kid snuck in earlier on and halfway through the movie or whatever. You think the killer would have nailed or locked that window or whatever, but that's just kind of one of the weak plot points. I think David sneaks in that way. I don't know, there's a scene where he goes upstairs. Oh yeah. There's a scene where he goes upstairs and he enters this really cool room, which is all white, really bright, and it's all this stuff hanging from the ceiling and stuff, where it's really you can this fabric that you can see through, but it's got Nicholas sewn on it. So it's all this really thin drapery hanging that you can see through, except it's like Nicholas, and he goes in there and he's like, Nicholas, and it's this kind of cool, tourist trappy, whispery voice that's like, Nicholas, and it's just this dream, almost this dreamish, nightmarish part where he's in this strange room, and it's just really weird, and Nicholas, and there's this, it keeps going deeper in the room, and there's this character, this dark character, as he gets closer, is becoming more visible, and the character is drawing the sheets back, or these thin pieces of fabric back, and and none other than freaking Piper Laurie character, Aura's mom. And I think, of course, she clunks him on the head with a hammer, or clunks him on the head with something, and he goes falling. And I think as he falls, he hits this, I don't know how it works, but he hits this baby crib or cradle thing that had some kind of Jason Voorhees, mummified baby, and it knocks the baby over when he's fallen over, and the body falls, and the baby head falls and bounces on the ground. So basically, the killer is Aura's mom, and this is really an ingenious part of this movie, and first I'll explain how she did it. It looked like the killer took mom and dad's heads, when in fact, mom actually killed dad. She actually killed a neighbor, killed and decapitated a neighbor woman and put that body there to be basically to double as her own body. And then she actually did kill dad and took dad's head. But when Ora came out and saw her, she was holding up dad's head next to her, and then she made this surprised look, mom, being Piper Laurie, made this surprised look. So Ora thought she was holding, the killer was holding up both heads of her parents. But when you watch the movie, I think it does do a cheat where I think when you first see the movie, or that scene where the right after the seance where the parents were killed, I think they do a cheat, and I think there is an individual holding up two heads. And then in the flashback, we do it where she's just holding the dad's head, and her head is of course next to it. So to be fair, I think they did play it that way. But I'd probably do the same thing to make sure to. Otherwise, they might know right away, the viewer, if you do it that way, with just her holding one head, that's the way it is. So anyway, that's really cool, by doing it that way. And I remember when I showed my dad at the end of that and the reveal of that, and the fact that it, instead of holding two heads, it was just one with her head, and she thought her head was her head when in fact she's the killer. My dad was like, "Oh, that's cool." And this is a really kind of a cool reason for, like with Friday the 13th and stuff, usually the event scene is before. Actually, no, on Friday the 13th it's the same way, where it's kind of like Friday the 13th in that aspect, where the killer, in this case Piper Laurie's character, Ora's mom, reveals to, the audience and David and Ora why she killed these people is because, when she was younger or whatever, presumably before Ora was around, or it doesn't really matter, she was going to have this boy, and basically the Brad Dourif was the doctor, and all the nurses she killed throughout the movie were the nurses, and it was a rainy and stormy night, and the power went out, and like a light, burst in the operating, the room where she was going to be delivering her son Nicholas. And Brad Dourif character had like a scalpel. I don't know why, it's kind of unrealistic, but whatever, it's a horror movie. He had a scalpel, and I guess he had the scalpel near the baby. I mean, that's not really realistic, but so the story goes in the movie where he's like, the bursting light kind of surprised the doctor Brad Dourif character, and the scalpel, he accidentally cut the baby's head off as it was coming out of her, which is so, it's kind of fake that he had a scalpel or whatever, who knows, it's a horror movie. But if you just look past that, it's really kind of a harrowing idea that, the doctor accidentally decapitated the son as she's giving birth, and it's just like, oh my God. And not only that, Piper Laurie, of course, is going, animal, because she's, whatever, I don't remember what they are, shit, I can't remember the nationality I said they are. So to make the scene even worse, and you might be wondering, well, why the hell did she kill her dad? I can understand why, she'd kill the doctor and the nurses and stuff, but why her husband? Well, because at this point, she's all going crazy. Romanian, that's the nationality they say they are. She's all going crazy and stuff like that, and the nurses and doctors are like, well, let's give her electroshock treatment, and maybe we can make her forget this ever happened. And the husband agreed. He's like, okay, give her the electroshock treatment. So after they kill her, decapitate her baby as it's being born, they go and put the things on her and give her electroshock treatment, try to make her forget, and it's just like, oh my God. So the reveal of that is really cool at the end of the movie, and it's just like, oh my God. And right at this time, the nerd kid, at this time they, oh, I forgot to mention that after she knocked out David, that, she chained him up in the basement with Ora. And so during this time, the nerd kid is snuck into the house, and there's a little scene where the kid hides in the closet, and the Piper Laurie character's got a fire poker and trying to, jab at the kid in the closet and stuff, and the kid's got the little wire drill thing, which I guess either it's another one or she fixed it, because the last time she tried to use it was with, it got shorted out with Brad Dourif's character. So basically there's this scene where, they put the chain around, Ora and David put the chain around this pillar and tried to attach it to this door, so she, you know, this kind of prison door that she's locked him in, so she, you know, the mom can't get in, and she's pulling on it, and it's pulling on this thing, and it pulls it out, and it makes this hole in the ceiling, which is the floor of the upstairs, and this kid is up there, and he's got the wire, you know, portable decapitator machine, and the mom's in there kind of, I don't know, gonna go get David, you know, breaks into the, you know, now that she opened the door and pulled the chain away and it made the hole in the ceiling / the floor of the upstairs, she's going to go and who knows what, you know, maybe kill David or kill Aurora on her way over there. The kid slips the wire around, you know, mom's neck and presses on, and it's like zzz, and it's like, you know, at this point the kid doesn't have to hold it. I mean, it's on the on position, so it's the kid let go of it, and you know, mom's Piper Laurie's like, ah, and it's this really cool bit where she, you know, cuts into her neck and she falls, and when her body falls, the head hits the ground, and they do this so cool effect where they show the behind the scenes in the DVD, Anchor Bay DVD, where, you know, as her head falls off, they do this cool thing where as her head's rolling, they actually rotate Piper Laurie, and they have like a floor thing. She's sitting in a chair, and they spin her around. They probably shoot it in high speed. So it plays back, you know, high speed or whatever, but they have her spin around as the double of the floor is going by her. So it looks like as the head's rolling across the floor, she's saying, I think she's saying Nicholas, or saying the name of the kid, you know, decapitated kid Nicholas or whatever. But you know, that's just really cool, and that's the end of the movie. And this review probably went on way too long, but originally I wasn't going to do beat by beat, but like I say, it's filmed in the Twin Cities, and I'm a Minnesotan, and you know, I'm just proud of the fact that, like, Dario Argento, this is probably his last movie made in America, maybe, and I don't know, it's just like, I just had to get into it and go for it or whatever. So it's as much as I, you know, love the fact that it's made in Twin Cities and all this and that, I'm afraid I don't know, I guess we'll go 2.5 stars out of 4 stars, and you might be surprised at the low rating. It's just because, you know, although there's really cool parts about it, it is very, like, sporadic, and just like, you know, sometimes scenes just like seem to end just like halfway through them, and there's a lot of randomness in the movie, like, that is kind of off-putting. So I'm not just going to give it like 4 stars because it was made in Twin Cities. I'm going to try to be, you know, actually, whatever that word is, I don't know, I can't think of that word, just objective. And I'd say 2.5 stars out of 4 stars. Like I say, the reason it's on the lower side is because it's just, there's some scenes that, like I say, they seem like they end halfway into them, or, you know, 3/4 of the way into them, and just like, there's just a lot of random stuff that the movie seems like it was just pieced together in a way that, I don't know, doesn't have that wonderful of a flow to it. Like, if you watch the movie, it just, like, you know, like Brad Dourif, you know, we introduce his character, and, you know, he's like, leave me the fuck alone, and then it's like, that scene's over, and all of a sudden it's nighttime, and he's in the rain, and he's wandering around out in the city, and it's just, so those are my reasons for the, you know, 2.5 stars. But again, I mean, that's not the lowest score or lowest rating a person could ever give it. But if you watched all the way to the end of this review, thank you very much for doing so. I kind of went on and on and on and on about this movie, and as you can tell, I'm still doing so. It would be really nice, you know, if this could come out on, you know, what's the name of that outfit that's putting out all those 4K versions of, is it Blue Underground, I think, maybe, is putting out all those 4K versions of Italian horror movies and stuff. It'd be nice if someone could put out a Blu-ray of Trauma, because as far as I know, it's basically out of print. You know, anything that you can find, anything that's like Region A or whatever as far as DVD goes. I did actually find a Blu-ray of it in half-price books. I was just so disappointed because it was like Region B or C or something like that, and not having a, you know, region-free player. At that point, you know, I really wished I had a region-free player, because I was like, oh my God, Trauma Blu-ray. But it is on Blu-ray, just not Region A as far as I know. But yeah, it's, you know, it holds a little higher place in my heart and stuff, obviously, because it was filmed in the Twin Cities. And I think, as you know, and as a whole or in general, I do think the movie is relatively decent, hence the 2.5 stars. And, it's fun to, have Piper Laurie and, Brad Dourif, even though it's short-lived, and Pino Donaggio do the music, and, Asia Argento and stuff. And like I say, it might be like definitely one of the last, if not the last, of the golden era of Argento. I don't remember what the antagonist is in Stendhal Syndrome, if it's the same gloved unknown killer thing, or if this is like the one of the last ones to do that or whatever. But anyway, thank you very much. There's my review of Trauma from 1992. Thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one. This is a spot which was an integral spot from the Dario Argento movie Trauma, because this spot was none other than the Petrescu's house. Just kind of take a nice little walk. There's the gazebo. This is actually a nice area for being in the city. So we'll just take a little walk and kind of casually walk by, being very on public sidewalk here, very casual. So that right there is the location. This is kind of a cool area. It reminds me of that area at the beginning of Friday the 13th Part 2 with all those older houses. But I don't know, I just feel like I'm being watched. So I'm trying to be as casual as possible. Now we're standing in the gazebo. And just to get a better shot of it without arousing suspicion. But it's just kind of like a just a block turned into a park. It's kind of cool, kind of quaint area.